This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agnew. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Carl Gould. He is the CTO and co-founder, co-creator of Inductive Automation. Carl, hello, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm good. This is your first podcast. I'm so excited.
one.
This is great.
Be gentle.
All right. We got it. Yeah. Well, we got to be nice because then you'll never go on another one again. So we'll take it easy on you today. No, Carl, you're an awesome guy. We had a chance to meet at 7CTO's 0111 conference in San Diego, and we've kept in touch since. You're a cool guy, run a really cool company. I want to hear more about it. What is Inductive Automation?
Yeah, we make our main product is called Ignition. It's software for the industrial automation space, and it's used in all kinds of different industries around the world to build various kinds of applications used in industrial automation. So we can get deep into what that really means if you want, but that's what we do.
So when we talked about this originally, you explained it very, very well. I think you kind of use CAD as an example. It's almost like a canvas kind of thing, right? Like you kind of give people the brushes to paint with.
That's right. That's right. So we give engineers a platform and a tool set to both build and deploy industrial applications. So in our world, there's all kinds of acronyms like HMI and SCADA and MES that anyone in this world is very familiar with and anyone outside of this world has never heard of.
No idea. That's right.
But don't worry about any of that. You know, it's the way I like to explain it. So like if you go into a factory or any kind of industrial facility of any kind, there's going to be a lot of machines doing things. There's going to be a lot of people trying to run the place. And then there's going to be a bunch of computer screens everywhere that are giving those people some sort of control, supervisory information about what their process is up to and the ability to interact with it, monitor for alarm conditions or change set points or start a batch of product or whatever it is that they're doing. We build the software that engineers use to build those applications. So the CAD analogy is like Autodesk builds AutoCAD. AutoCAD is used by engineers to design buildings or bridges or products or what have you. So we have a similar sort of setup where we, as Inductive Automation, build a product called Ignition. Ignition is used by control systems integrators to build actual industrial applications used by manufacturers or water, wastewater treatment plants, data centers for energy and cooling management, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. And I want to talk a little bit more about how you kind of built that ecosystem for integrators a little bit later, but because I mean, that's like a kind of almost like a separate way to build software, right? Like almost like one person removed from the actual end client. So I'm sure it's like a very interesting process to build that initially, but then also, you know, kind of support that and evolve it along the way. So we'll talk about all that stuff. What I do want to know is, where did you grow up, and did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur later in life?
Yeah, I would say both the where and the when, I think,
had
significant impact. So I grew up in the Bay Area in California, North Bay, and I graduated high school in the year 2000. So that means I was coming of age basically with the modern internet, right? So I sort of started paying attention in what now I sort of think of as the golden age of the internet, you know, back in the late 90s. And especially in the Bay Area, technology, computers were just all around. And I was lucky enough to have a personal computer in my house growing up. We had an 8086 and then a 286 and a 386 and a 486 and a Pentium. And so I grew up tinkering and playing with computers my entire childhood, enough to just know exactly what I wanted to do going out of high school. It was definitely going to be something with computers because that was really what I was into. And the entrepreneurial spirit sort of I think, sort of rode along with that technology in that era, right?
Yep.
It was just so obvious in the late 90s that if you were into computers, there was just all kinds of interesting things you could build, and
Mhm.
the whole world was essentially being remade in the personal computer and internet era at that moment. And so
Yeah.
there was just so many fun things you could do with that skill set.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Do you think I had a computer, I'm assuming your mom or dad obviously like had a computer in the house or something. Do you feel like
Mhm.
did we have an advantage? Is that the reason
Absolutely.
why we got into tech because we had I mean, do you think that what if there's like a statistical line where it's like people without a computer in the 90s went off and were like lawyers and accountants and shit, and then people whose parents had even some old dusty DOS machine in the house was enough. I mean, that's what we had. It was like enough to
Old
like
dusty DOS machines were great for learning, right?
it was awesome. It was
So
great. And you had the
I picked up
oh,
Quick Basic on a DOS system and wrote
yeah.
Mad Libs for my sister. And yeah, having that in the house, being able to tinker with it, and those machines demanded tinkering,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
today's computers and phones and whatnot, they just work so well. You don't really have to tinker with them to get them to work.
Right.
But in that era, if you wanted to do anything interesting with a computer, you had to kind of dig in and tinker and
Mhm.
read the manual and experiment. And I
Mhm.
think that was useful training ground. I mean, I think it's sort of, what do they say? Necessary but not sufficient, right? Like I think
Mhm.
having that technology available is a necessary precondition for, or certainly useful for getting into this type of
Sure.
career.
Yeah, and now we're on the other end of the spectrum where the internet and technology is everywhere, and you almost have to like protect your kids from too much
Right.
exposure. And it's like
Yes.
we didn't have that, or it was just like just do as much as you possibly could and learn as much as you possibly can because like the dangers were like still out here. And now it's like, I have a 13-year-old with a phone that I'm like fighting to like how much
Mhm.
does he have it and how much does he not? And like how much do I teach him about how to use Chat GBT versus like not because he's gonna get in trouble at school and like all
Right.
it's a weird
It's totally changed.
shift that we've
Yeah.
gone through now. That's interesting.
Nothing today, I think, about having access to technology is going to be predictive of having a career in technology.
Sure. Yeah, we
It's
can't. Yeah, you almost have to. Well, if you don't, then you might as well just move out to a cabin in the woods, like because you're not going to be part of modern society. And even the pediatrician was like telling my wife, like at some point now, they basically consider it less, you know, less beneficial to keep the phone from them because all their friends have it, and like you become a little disconnected socially. At some point, there's some point where like you almost kind of have to give in to like be part of this big social experiment with all these little kids running around with like all the technology in the world like in their hands. So it's definitely an interesting spectrum we've lived over the past 20-25 years. So what was you took all that stuff, I relate to a lot of that stuff. We were 3 years apart, so I was in that same kind of mindset back then. So what did you do with that tinkering computer, I'm gonna kind of be a builder kind of mindset? Where did you go with that after you kind of graduated and you moved on a little bit?
Yeah, so I graduated high school and I went to T Davis, also in California, obviously. And I started out as a computer engineering major, which is sort of a blend of hardware and software, but pretty quickly I realized that writing software was really what I thought was the most fun thing
Mm.
because it enabled you to just, build castles in the sky. And I couldn't get enough of it, so I switched to be a computer science and engineering major. And I did throughout school, I had an internship where at like a financial services company in Sacramento, and I was a QA intern, and the work there was sort of boom and bust, and so there were times during that internship that they didn't have a lot for me to do, and so I picked up a book on Java and I read it cover to cover, and I've basically been programming in Java ever since. And let's see, from there I went and I thought I was going to get into academia. So I went and worked for the computer science research department at Davis for a while, wrote a paper, did that whole thing, and I was actually 2 or 3 weeks into a grad program, a master's program at Davis, when we started the company Inductive Automation with a friend of mine who I met in compilers class. And I dropped out of grad school because it was just so much fun. And I've been doing it ever since.
Beautiful. That's a great story. I like that. What problem did you guys set out to solve? I mean, you're young at that time, like solving
Yeah,
a manufacturing,
right.
like
Like
display like what was the problem? What did you guys see? How did you even get interested in this space of like, manufacturing and all the stuff you do now?
right, because it's a space that not very many people are even aware exists.
Right.
And so the way this all started was my friend and colleague in college, Colby Clegg, he got a sort of summer job at a control systems integrator in Sacramento. And the owner of that company, they'd been doing control systems engineering in Sacramento for, I don't know, since the mid to late 80s, I believe. And this is 2003. And the owner of that company had started becoming very frustrated with the available software solutions in the industrial automation space. And what he really wanted to be able to do was just take industrial data, think tank levels and pressures and temperatures and conveyor amperage usage, whatever, measurements essentially from factories.
Mhm.
He wanted to take it and he wanted to connect it to SQL databases and store those that data in SQL databases. Remember 2003, this is like right when the sort of lamp stack was really taking
Mhm.
off, and freely available SQL databases were the hot thing in tech. And his customers had all this industrial data, and they had SQL databases often on their network that held work orders and business data, and he wanted
Mhm.
to be able to connect those two systems together.
Mm.
And the software on the market at the time simply couldn't do that. And so he brought Colby in as a summer job to essentially write a little utility that would help him connect industrial data to SQL databases.
Mm.
And then about maybe 5, 6 months later, Colby pulled me in and said, "Hey, we've got this, I got this fun job in Sacramento dealing with industrial data, and I get to, head out to wineries and connect to these interesting little control devices called PLCs and do these interesting projects. But now we need an application to present this information to operators who are on site.
Right.
We've got this data in the database. Now we need to do something with it." And I had some experience with Java, as I mentioned already, and with like Swing user interfaces. And so they brought me in to build that piece of the tech stack.
Mhm. So, from there, you kind of doing this summer job or doing this intern job, and you're kind of, young. And so, when did it go from like, hey, this is just something that we're doing and we're building it for this guy to like, oh, we could take this or we could really make something that it stands alone by itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. So initially, we were really building the software for the control systems integrator that we were working for.
Mhm.
And we were basically programming for a few weeks, and then we would go out in the field and use our software. We got paired up with an actual control systems engineer, like a PLC programmer, and we would work together in some project that this company had. And then we would use our own product and then come back and program for a few more weeks and make it do more interesting things and go back out. And we actually came up with the name inductive automation originally as a bit of a smokescreen, because the companies of this control systems integration firm were not real comfortable buying software from their control systems integrator. It was like
Mm.
if you went to a mechanic and they needed to order a part, and they said, "Well, but if you want, I've got these, 23-year-olds in the back in the machine shop, and they could like mill you a part." And you
Right.
might be like, "I don't know, that seems
Right.
that doesn't seem like a great idea." So we came up with the name inductive automation to sort of create some maybe mental separation between
Mm.
the two companies. And after about a year and a half of doing that, we thought, gee, we might have something here. And we started trying to talk to other control systems integrators, because the owner, his name is Steve Heckman, the owner of the control systems integration company that we were sort of created inside of.
Mhm.
He's a really passionate guy, and he had all these passionate, very strong opinions about the industry and the other companies in the industry, the other vendors, the other software solutions. And here we were, young, fresh out of college, and we were like, wow, he's got a lot of very strong opinions. And what was really incredible is as we started talking to other control systems integrators, the degree to which his opinions matched up with everybody we talked to was really eye opening. And we were like, oh, wow, we're really onto something here. We're really solving a problem that seems pretty universal in this space. So then we all decided, hey, let's try to make a pure software play out of this.
And what was the owner's kind of thought on that?
He had a lot of thoughts. There was a lot of pain points in the industry at the time. Again, this is 2002, 2003, that era. And a lot of the software vendors in the space, they're big, storied, multinational companies. Think, Rockwell and GE and
Mhm.
Siemens, these sorts of companies. And they had these products on the market that really had been developed in the early to mid 90s. Some of them adapted from technology even earlier, and it just hadn't really kept up with how technology was, as you remember, really rapidly changing at that time, right?
Yep.
So all of a sudden, you've got web servers and free databases and all this incredible IT technology that was creating so much value in the technology world. And they hadn't taken that and applied it into the problems of the industrial space. So there was like a big technology gap
Mhm.
that was just like waiting to be filled.
Right.
And then there was also sort of a big how do we do business gap. These companies, the way that they did business was what we thought as 22, 23-year olds, pretty old school, right? Like, you want to try the software out? Well, call somebody up and see if you can meet with your local rep. And there wasn't a way to download the software from the website. And it was a very sort of traditional
Mm.
hardware company way of doing business with local distributors and a lot of bureaucratic layers.
Right.
And we thought, well, gee, e- you know, even apart from the technological fit of the product we were trying to build, there was a whole how do we do business angle of, well, we'll just, do sales calls over GoToMeeting, which was novel at the time. And we'll put a built-in trial mode into the software so that you can just download it. And so we had all these what now in hindsight seem like revolutionary ideas. At the time they seemed kind of obvious. They still sort of seem obvious, but in this space they were pretty novel.
Mm. Okay. No, I love that. And was there any friction between you guys going off to do this on your own and Steve, the guy who kind of came up with the idea and maybe fostered the environment? Or was it just like you guys take this and go run with
Oh
it?
no, he came along with us for the ride, so
Okay.
there wasn't any friction there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Very
still
cool.
involved. So,
Okay. Cool.
yep.
So who do you remember who your first customer was?
Okay, so if you take out the control systems integration company had a bunch of customers that we were using the software at.
Yep.
Take those aside. Those were mostly wineries, the occasional manufacturer in the Central Valley. The first customer I recall landing as like a customer we didn't do the integration
Mhm.
for
Right.
was Sierra Nevada Brewery in Chico. I remember going up there with Steve to do a sales pitch, which is
Right.
probably the first sales pitch I'd ever done. And I'm all of 23 years old probably. And I remember showing up. Oh, and I was a big beer enthusiast at the time, so I was all excited to to pitch Sierra Nevada.
Sure.
And so we go up there, and they sit us down in this nice, I don't know, conference room, and I basically give them a demonstration of our software, and we, do our little dog and pony show, and we leave. And they ended up buying the software, and many years later, they were recalling their memory of that story. And they were laughing and they were like, well, what you didn't realize was that you were pitching us directly after one of your big competitors had come in and pitched us on basically their take on trying to solve the problem we were trying to solve, which
Mhm.
again was about connecting to databases.
Sure.
Their solution was like 2 orders of magnitude more expensive.
Mhm.
We had very naive pricing up front, and I think we were pitching something that was all of like $800 to this company, and they were laughing that, it was so cheap that they might as well have just taken out their wallets right there at the conference room and purchased a copy on a whim just to see if it would work. So we thought that was amusing.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, I mean, do you think I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but how much has it helped or did it help back then to kind of have, Steve there as the guy with the, historical industry knowledge and kind of some of these big ideas and, is did I guess the question is how much did that help then? And then how did you guys start to internalize that over the years for yourself to where you could, kind of stand on your own feet and not need,
Right.
that sort of mentorship in those situations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in the early years, I mean, it was absolutely crucial because coming out of college, we'd never heard of any of this stuff,
Sure. Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And so, you know, all of the opinions he had and intuition he had for what does this market need? Do you approach, the pitching to customers versus trying to get an integrator on board? Where are the solution fits and gaps that we're trying to fill? Those were all him initially. But it doesn't take long when you start jumping in with 2 feet into an industry before you start understanding the industry. And
Mhm.
so, even as soon as a few years in, we felt like we understood the industry pretty well. But, his opinions and business guidance were invaluable and are still, very valuable to us.
Love that. All right, well, let's fast forward. There kind of makes sense of where you guys were with your first customer back then. How has it changed? Who's your customer today versus who it was back then?
That's a good question. I mean, we are very diversified. I would say early on, a lot of our customers were in food and beverage, water, wastewater, and manufacturing, like
Mhm.
consumer packaged goods. Um, that's really those are the industries where we got started. And we would land customers who were very bottom up. So, we would land one small piece of one factory within some larger company because somebody was an early adopter of
Mhm.
some kind and willing to take a chance on a relatively small unknown
Right.
vendor to solve some small problem. And we really followed a land and expand kind of approach.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't try to come in, if you I remember one time we were at a trade show, and we've got a booth and people are walking by and you're trying to, pitch to the people walking by, and someone walks by and say, "Hey, do you need a new SCADA system?" And a SCADA system is like a big deal. It's like the whole system that runs a plant.
Sure.
And they're like looking at these kids at this booth and like, no way, like I don't need a SCADA system from you. And he's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, do you need to log some industrial data to a database maybe to run some reports? Oh yeah, that could be useful. So, we would find these little places to get a foot in the door.
Mhm.
Nowadays, we have, I think, the name and reach to approach the market differently. And we can come in and talk to a customer at sometimes not the absolute ground floor. Sometimes we're now coming in and talking a few layers up
Mm,
and approaching larger problems from the get-go. We're also now really well diversified across basically every industry you can imagine.
mm.
So we're not quite so focused on food and beverage, although we still have a ton of customers in food and bev.
How do you stay excited after doing it for 22 years, I think, right? Or it's been a long
Yeah, it's
time.
been a long time.
Is it the diversity of stuff you guys get to work with? Is it the team? Is it a combination? What like when you wake up in the morning, how are you still excited to come do the same thing that you've been doing for so long?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that can be challenging at times. For me, the way to stay excited is to keep in contact with the people who find your product valuable to their life,
Yep.
to their job, to their careers, and we have tons of those. And so one of the things we do is we host a user conference called ICC, the Ignition Community Conference. And integrators and end users, they all come and we meet for 3 or 4 days and share best practices, and you get to see what people are building. And when I get to see what people build with the software that I
Mm,
built, it's very motivating, very inspiring. We've also started doing these field trips called the Industry Immersion Program, where we take maybe a dozen or 15 of our employees and we fly them out
mm,
to go on factory tours. So, put on your steel-toed boots and your hard hat
mhm.
and go tour factories.
I like
And
that.
I don't know, do you remember the TV show How It's Made?
Oh, yeah, love that show. Yeah,
Fun show, right?
great show.
It's like
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
you're, on set.
Oh, I
And
love
that's
that.
really fun. That's really motivating. So I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that, and being connected to the ones that you're providing value to, I definitely agree, like, that's a way to just consistently feel that urge to continue adding value to their side of the equation. Switch gears entirely. Personal brand. You run this cool company. You've been doing it for a long time. You've had a bunch of different roles. You're, co-founder, you're CTO, you're all this different stuff along the way. How much do you think about that? How much do you worry about that? Do you do you want people to know Carl outside of inductive automation? Are you guys the same thing in the public eye? Like, are you? I mean, obviously, we all kind of exude some appreciation for the company that we own or we're with or whatever we're on social media, but do you separate them at all? Is it all kind of the same thing? That's thought leadership leading back to inductive. Do you worry about any of it at all? Do you let other people in the company do that? What's your take on like who Carl is supposed to be kind of, publicly facing?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I don't think about it very much. I'm not super active on LinkedIn. I don't seek out podcasts to go on. This is the
Yes,
first
I came
time.
to you to be so everybody knows Carl did not solicit this from me. This is me soliciting Carl. So no, but
Yeah,
just in general, and generally speaking, I mean, what else out there? I mean, you go
well,
to
I
events,
can't avoid it. Like,
right?
it's there whether I like it or not. That's
Sure.
something I've come to appreciate,
Okay.
because, I'm on stage at ICC. I am visible to some degree or another. So, to the best of my ability, I just try to make sure that when I am speaking, I'm saying something interesting or of value to somebody,
Mm. Yep.
um, right? As opposed to trying to build a brand for my own
Mhm.
benefit.
Yep.
That said, we have people at Inductive Automation who do that part of the job far better than I do, and I'm happy to let them, have that limelight, as it
Sure.
were.
Okay. That's fair. Well, I mean, I think you're to be fair, you're not hiding in the office all day. Like I met you at a conference with hundreds of people and you're out doing your thing. So I mean that is a completely fair answer, I think, to that question. And there's like this, founder expectation out there that you're kind of, out shooting finger guns, being the cool guy in front of her. And like you don't have to do that,
Yeah.
especially if you're presenting, yourself as just the guy who runs like, some really cool tech and a really cool company and that's what you're passionate about, then like if that's what people know you for, you and inductive are kind of tied at the hip. And I think that everybody eventually realizes that that doesn't have to be an individual. It doesn't have to be grouped together. You can kind of play off each other, especially as social media evolves and it's not as like static as it, was. And it's just, it depends on what you want your image to be. So, I think, you're a very approachable, nice guy. And the times I've met you in public and, seeing you here, you've got a great public facing persona. So I don't think there's a right answer to that question. I just love to ask that question of especially nerdy people like me and people like you that like grew up doing computer stuff that like are probably, I'm introverted. I put this on, I walk in the door and I'm like, this is who I am right now. But it's, it's an interesting thought, especially someone who's like loves the tech as much as you do, that social piece versus the technical piece. If you had to start over tomorrow, same company, same industry, same space, what would be step one tomorrow to get this business up and running?
Mm. If I had to, boy, that's a tricky question because there's so many nuances. If I had to start over knowing what I know now at the time that I started it, or if I had to start over today in today's
Today
market?
in today's world.
Oh shoot, that's a lot harder.
I know.
I really do think that the most important thing is making sure. I think that technology people, software people, we get so excited sometimes by technology itself. And I think sometimes we find solutions first and then look for the problem that the solution fits.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
don't think that's a good idea. I think you have to be absolutely certain that you're solving an actual problem for actual people in an actual market.
Yep. God, I couldn't
And
agree more. Could not agree
I
more.
think that is because if you have that, the rest of it will follow, right? Like, I mean, there's a million things you could say about go to market strategies and, finding your first customer, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things there, but it's going to be all so much easier if you know and you are solving an actual problem for people.
Yep. Could not agree more, friend. That is it still shocks me how prevalent the former you described there is, and you can get away with it for a little bit. You can solve a problem for, some people, but yeah, I mean that's it, dude. Solving a painful problem for enough people that makes it worth it for you. Like it's like it's really it, right? It's like
That's
problem
it.
plus market equals like
That's
and if
foundation.
so yeah, I totally agree. I love that answer. All right, I have one more for you. This is
Okay.
non-business related,
All right.
so non-inductive automation. This is just about Carl. Like if you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
Well, with Bobby Weir passing,
Mm,
it makes me think about joining a Grateful Dead tribute band. But I think my real answer probably would be sailing around the world.
okay. Wow, that's a good one. And I mean, the rock star one, obviously you
I
can't fail in
mean,
this
who doesn't?
scenario,
Yeah,
so
it'd be
you could
great.
do whatever you want. But sailing around the world. Did you ever hear that book, 483 Days? I
Mm-mm.
just found this. It's a guy who was a fisherman in Mexico that got blown off course and was at sea
Oh.
in like in the doldrums, like off of Peru or whatever, where like it's basically the desert, like on the
Mm-hmm.
water
Mm-hmm.
for 483 days. And he ended up in the Marshall Islands, like 6,000 miles away. And just like the story of like you want to talk about like never give up. I mean, the dude was like chewing on pieces of the planks from the wood to get so like
Mm-hmm.
and he was like his own beard he was like eating of. I mean, it was like bad. I mean, you're in the middle of he was in an ice box. That was his only way to like shield himself from the sun out there. So anyway,
Right.
that reminds me of that
If
story.
you're in,
But
I got
if,
two recommendations for
all
you.
right,
Read
let's hear it.
Adrift,
Okay.
a similar story
They
from the 70s, I believe.
they quoted that
And
book in this one. So yes, I
okay.
meant to read that. Yeah. Okay.
And The
What else?
Wager.
The Wager. All right, I'm gonna write these
If you're
down.
into, nautical
Survival,
adventures, survival
survival,
stories.
and
Mhm.
yeah, okay. I'll check these out. Well, I think sailing around the world is a great one. I would love to do that too. I don't know. I feel like I want that, and then like a month in, if you're like, if it's not great, you're like, this is tough. This might
I
maybe I would have
worry about
done the
that
Grateful
also.
Dead tribute band instead of be out in the middle of the Pacific about to die. But Carl, you're awesome. I love your energy, man. If people want to reach out to you directly about something they heard today, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I even log in there sometimes and check my
Well,
messages. So
hopefully somebody finds the timing and it's right, and you happen to be in there that quarter of the year, and they'll reach out. But Carl, you're great. I love this story, man. It's so cool. I'd love to have you back on someday, dig in a little bit deeper. I want to talk about
sure,
kind of how you built that, ecosystem of builders, which is a pretty cool kind of concept as well.
yeah,
So let's stay in touch. We follow along with the story. Like I said, I mean, I know a lot of people know the name Inductive Automation. You guys have built a really cool product and brand, and it's something you should be proud of, man. And I'm really glad to have you on. And I think you did great for your first podcast. So, here's to many more, brother. And we'll talk to you again soon. All right. Thanks,
thanks so
Carl.
much, Jay.
See you, man. Later.
Bye.